Hey there guys, Jason from Remax Real Estate Center here, and this week I'm gonna go over some frequently asked questions. I had really good feedback on the first FAQ video that I did, and so I thought I'd tackle it again. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been collecting questions that people are asking me that I think might be interesting to other folks who want to know my opinion on things or a realtor's opinion on things. So let's just get into it. Coffee shop recommendations. So in Kitchener, there is a place I went to recently called Show and Tell, which is wonderful. I have every intention of going back there. And up in Waterloo, Matter of Taste is not too far from where I live right now. And that is definitely gonna be a place I'll be posting up to work over the next little while. Favorite seasonal event? I've been a number of times, but I gotta say Oktoberfest, I still love how big of an event that is and how much it brings the city together. I try to get out to a couple of events every year. Usually I don't get out for the parade or anything like that, but I do enjoy the evening events a lot. Also, catching Kitchener Ranger games whenever I get the opportunity is a ton of fun. Favorite pubs or bars? Right now, I'm a big fan of Stark and Perry in Uptown Waterloo, and I always love ABURB, either location, Kitchener or Waterloo. They're just good staples to go to. I really recommend 21 Fur, the whiskey bar in Uptown Waterloo as well. Do I watch $1 Million Listing is one that I actually get asked quite a bit. And I gotta say, I am a sucker for $1 Million Listing New York. Couldn't care less about $1 Million Listing LA. I don't know what it is. I just love the characters in New York. I think it's a little bit more closer to the market that we live in. It kind of reminds me a bit more of what Toronto would be like. LA is such a different beast. Most frequently used tool in my business. Easy answer would just be my cell phone. I'm on it all the time. But to go into a little bit more detail, I use a program called DocuSign for electronic signatures of offers, counteroffers, agreements, and I started using it in other aspects of my life as well. About 2 years ago, we were legally allowed to start using DocuSign in the business, and it has been a game changer. My favorite memory in real estate. I think there are so many highlights to the job, it's hard to pick just one, but one thing that I was always really kind of proud of, I guess, or something that worked out really well for some of my sellers is that we sold a condo in Kitchener for a little over asking price. This was maybe 2 years ago, a year and a half, 2 years ago. And coming up on closing, all of a sudden, I couldn't get a hold of the agent. We were getting nothing from the buyer. And on the day of closing or the day before closing, the agent called me and said the guy doesn't have any money. He doesn't have enough money to close the deal, and so we couldn't do it. So what happened is that we ended up keeping the deposit for the transaction, so the sellers were able to keep that money, and we relisted, sold with a very short closing date for, I believe it was around $10,000 over the original price that we accepted. So not only did the sellers get to keep their deposit, we sold for way more even though it was a bit rushed. One underestimated thing in Waterloo, I think it's underestimated how easy it is to find groups of people with similar interests to yourself. When I first moved here, a lot of my involvement was at the University of Waterloo and being involved on campus. But after moving off campus and looking for other ways to get involved and meet new people, I now play sports 3 or 4 nights a week, almost year round. And any interest that you have, really, it's so easy to just look it up, whether you're into doing poetry slams, whether you're into doing coding competitions, whether you're into doing things like bonsais, or I'm a big fan of plants. Like, it's so easy to find a group of people with shared interests. And people are very, very welcoming and open here to people from all kinds of backgrounds. My favorite units in Waterloo. I talked last time about my favorite neighborhood being in like the East and North Ward area. I do love that. And so for one of those reasons, I would put the mansion lofts pretty high up on of condo units or loft units in the city. I'm a big fan of those mansion lofts. I just think they're so cool. I'm an absolute sucker for repurposed heritage buildings. And so along the same veins and kind of a step up in price point would be the Seagram lofts in Uptown Waterloo. I try to go through and see them whenever they hit the market. I am a huge fan of them. I just think they're the coolest thing ever. And maybe one day I'll end up living in one. It'd be a dream. What am I most excited for in Kitchener-Waterloo over the next couple of years? I cannot wait for the day when there is a Jays game on a Saturday afternoon and I can just drive to downtown Kitchener and take a train into Toronto. The frequency of trains needs to increase, and I cannot wait for the day that it does. I think once we get to a point where they're doing multiple trips a day or even hourly trips to Toronto, it's gonna completely change the face of Kitchener-Waterloo. What apps do I use most frequently on my phone? I use an app that all realtors in town are using or should be using, and it's called Showing Time. It's one that we use when we're requesting and communicating with listing agents to set up previews or notify them that we'll be submitting offers, stuff like that. It's probably my #1 used app. I also use an app called Team Viewer on my phone, which allows me to remote into my computer. So if I do need to print any documents and maybe I'm at the office but I'm gonna need them when I get back home, I can remote into my computer on my phone and set it up and have it printed, so when I come home it's just sitting in the printer. My pet peeve for real estate. In Kitchener-Waterloo, especially being in a snowy belt of a region here, I think my biggest pet peeve in those days, sometimes things just pile on, and when it is bitter cold outside and you are trudging your way to your 5th showing of the day with a couple that's kind of losing their patience with the temperature and the slow drives from place to place. When you get to a property and the lockbox is frozen, that is my biggest pet peeve. I hate frozen lockboxes, and I secretly believe that there are some realtors out there who bring warm water with them to pour it on a lockbox so they can get it open, but then it screws over everybody else for the rest of the day. I'm pretty sure that happens, but I don't really have any way of proving it. So this is getting pretty long. I hope this is interesting for people. It is a little bit of an insight into who I am, my take on the city, what's going on, a little bit about work. If you have any questions of your own, feel free to send them over. I'd love to answer them. If you have any questions of your own, or if there's something you want me to tackle in a future video or JV update, feel free to send me a comment here, direct message, email, text, whatever you want to do. I'm pretty accessible on all platforms at JayVUpdate. Thank you guys so much for tuning in again this week. I hope this has been as fun for you as it was for me. I will see you next Friday. Really hope you enjoyed that video. It was a lot of fun for me. I hope it was beneficial for you. If you want to see more from me, feel free to subscribe here or check out another video down here.